family. Welcome back. I have a question for you. Have you thought about moving? Drop me a comment. Where have you thought about moving to? Drop me a comment, guys. Let's chat about that today. Let's talk about moving. Have you thought about moving from one state to another state, for example, somewhere here in the U.S.? Or are you thinking about moving to another country? Drop me some comments. Let's talk moving today. Well, guys, let me just remind you of my journey. Once upon a time, I lived in New York. Well, you know what? Let me go back further, okay? I was actually born and raised in New York. But you know what? Even as a kid, I didn't like it. I didn't even like living in New York as a kid. And the first thing that comes to mind for me, even as a kid, that I didn't like was the weather. That's what it was, guys. And listen, and it's cold in New York. You know, right now it's January, okay? And January in New York is very cold. It's cold, okay? Because here, let me just compare it to where I live now. I live in Georgia now. That's right, guys. I made the move from New York to Georgia to the south, where it's much warmer. But even here in Georgia, right now it's 27 degrees, okay? Notice I got the cap on. Guys, by now, you should know, whenever you see me with some type of head cap inside the house, okay? I'm cold, all right? You know, so I just put something on just to keep warm, you know? But yeah, so even as a kid, guys, I didn't like the cold weather. I didn't like it. Can you relate to that, guys? Drop me a comment. You know, do you dislike the cold weather as much as I do? Drop me a comment, please, okay? Because I cannot be the only one that disliked the cold weather. So even as a kid, I remember, you know, bundling up, even just to go next door. You know, we had a cousin that lived next door, and, you know, I would go over to their house, or my mom would send me to that cousin's house so that cousin could braid my hair. You guys know how that is. There's always somebody in the family that's a really good hair braider. So my cousin would send me next door and to get my hair braided. But even to go from house to house, building to building, I had to put on layers of clothing and boots. I remember it being the winter time. I remember it being, guys, did you move? Did you make a move from New York? Drop me a comment. If you know what I'm saying is the truth, drop me a comment, guys. As always, if you like my content, if you like my vibe, press that like button, share my videos, and do subscribe. I appreciate, guys, when you subscribe. Can you subscribe for me? Press a whole lot of snow. It was really white outside. You know, it was coming down really hard, okay? A lot of snow on the ground. You know, you could, you know, seeing how far ahead, question mark, you know, that kind of snow. That's the kind of cold and snow that New York gets. So even as a kid, I'm like, what? Well, it's pretty, you know, when it snows for the first time, it's pretty. It does look pretty. The white snow kind of looks like white cotton, thick layers of cotton on the ground and on stairs and buildings and things like that. So pretty, yes, when it first snows. I'll go on from there in a minute, okay? But it's cold. And I remember being as a kid, I definitely was, I was under, I was maybe about 8 at the time, okay? And even then I didn't like it. So guys, I would like to know, how do you feel about this cold weather? Do you live in a cold weather state? Do you live in a cold weather country? Drop me some comments, okay? Now, here's the thing, guys. We can't change the weather, all right? But I can move from place to place where I can have weather that's more tolerable for me, okay? And that choice for me was Georgia, okay? Even right now, 27 degrees, I can put on, a hoodie, okay? Just a hoodie. maybe a turtleneck underneath it, and I can be about my business. Okay, even at 27 degrees in Georgia. Okay, typically I'm going from location A to location B in and out of the car. So, not like New York, I've got to put on, if I was in New York right now, I would have to have on a heavy winter coat. I would need to have on some boots, a woolly hat, gloves. Now, that's a funny thing, gloves. You know, I wore gloves, needed to wear gloves, woolly gloves, thick gloves in New York wintertime period. But here in Georgia, no. No, because it's just the weather. It's just more manageable. It's much more tolerable. And I have one pair of gloves that I might have worn maybe one time, and I actually bought the gloves for when I'm walking outside, exercising. So I'm outside for at least a half an hour. But on an average day today, I don't need it. So the number one reason why I moved from New York was the weather. I couldn't change it, so I had to do something about it. And that's something that I did was move. I decided where to move. Warmer climate was at the top of my list, the very top. Okay, so that's why most people move from place to place. That's one of the key reasons, the weather. Drop me a comment. Do you agree with that? I'd like to know. It was my number one reason. Okay. The number two reason for me was, it was the cost of living. I've shared before, but let me share it again because it's still relevant today. It is. Back then, this is like 1997 because I've been away from living in New York that long. So, I've been away from living in New York that long. Well, the cost of living then, 1997, 1998, for me, it was about a two-bedroom apartment costing me $1,000 every month. I'm like, this is just a lot of money, this is a lot of money. And then I was doing my research. Remember, guys, I start thinking about things and I start doing my research. Then what was common for me at the time was, I would have a notebook and I would write my thoughts down. What are my complaints? What don't I like about living in New York? What I want to change? How do I want to live? I would write down notes like that in a notebook. Guys, listen, if you're thinking about moving wherever you're thinking about moving to, I thought, I've talked about before on other videos, motivating yourself. Well, part of motivating yourself is being organized, and taking notes is about being organized. Write down what you like, what you dislike about where you are living now. Where can you find the things that you like in other states or in other countries? Write down these things. You got to be organized, guys. You start thinking here, but you start typing your notes, start writing down your notes, maybe a combination. All right, some people like writing to this day. Some people still like writing things down in a notebook, and that's fine. Be organized. Create a plan for yourself. So the rent thing, no, that rent thing had to go. $1,000 for rent, no. I made a transition. Where can I live? Fine. I'm like, this is a lot of money for an apartment. That's the whole thing. $1,000 US dollars every month for an apartment. Did I own it? No, the landlord owned it, and I was obligated to pay this every month. So what about owning a house where I can spend maybe $1,000, and have much more space, and I'm working towards owning the house. That's my thought. That was my thought then. And I think that's a relevant thought even today for someone. Whatever you're paying in rent, I want you to consider, where can you live for that amount, live a better quality of life, better quality life for that amount. Whatever you're paying for rent, whatever you're paying for mortgage, what have you, whatever the situation is, always compare it to somewhere else where you're considering moving. So I compared my New York living arrangement to, perhaps I can consider moving to Georgia. And I did. I did my research, guys. Okay, fine. I went from $1,000 a month, 2-bedroom apartment, to a 4-bedroom, 4-bath house, okay, paying about $1,200, 1,200 US dollars a month in a mortgage. That's 1997. Yeah, actually, I made the move in 99. So 1999, 4-bedroom house. Typically, you could buy it down here in Georgia for, and the monthly mortgage was about 1,200 US dollars. Okay, so that's an achievement, wouldn't you say? Definitely an achievement, I'd say. So my number 2 reason was the cost of living. And the biggest cost of living then and still now in New York is the rent and the mortgages, okay? Now, if someone owning a house, and I know a lot of people, family members and friends who own houses, okay, in New York, and a lot of them are elderly because they bought their houses way, way, way back then, and they bought it low. They bought it cheap. Owning a house as an investment, and the rule for investment is you buy low. Buy low, and sometime in the future, when you think about selling, you sell high. That's the rule. Let me repeat it again, guys. The rule about investing, for example, in real estate, you buy low, buy at a low price. And eventually, sometime in the future, you sell at the highest price possible. That's the rule about investing. Write that down, guys. Please put that in your notebook. Guys, remember, I've also talked to you about creating notes on your phone, using a notes app. This is something to put in your notes, okay? It is. So yeah, guys, the whole mortgage thing in New York, high cost of mortgage, okay? And also taxes. You can't get away from property taxes anywhere in the U.S. Wherever you live in the U.S., okay, you're going to have to pay taxes. Some people pay taxes quarterly, some people pay taxes once a year, but whatever property that you own, okay, house, condominium, maybe a townhouse, something, all right, whatever real estate that you own, there's going to be annual taxes that are due, okay, whether you pay quarterly or annually, it's going to be due, all right, and that's a chunk of money. People are spending thousands of dollars every year for their property taxes in New York. It's a big thing. So they have big mortgages, okay, because the houses cost more in New York, okay? Listen. Okay, so for example, a cousin of mine has a house. It's a technically it's a 2-bedroom house, and downstairs let's say that there's a 1-bedroom apartment downstairs. That particular property is worth maybe about 650,000 US dollars. Property's not in good condition right now. That's a whole other story. But the taxes on the property, at least $6,000. At least $6,000. A lot of money. And the only reason that it's that low is because of this. The mother, when she was still alive, senior citizen. So typically here in the U.S., if you own a home, the real estate taxes, the property taxes will be lower for someone who is a senior citizen. Okay, that's the way how it works here in the U.S. Does it work like that where you live, whatever country you live, whatever state you live, and so forth? Drop me a comment. Does it work like that for you? Are the property taxes lower if the person who owns the property is a senior citizen? Drop me some comments on that, guys. Listen, we're talking about what are some reasons why people move away from New York. Okay, number 1, the weather. Okay, number 2, the cost of living, and the biggest cost of living is either the rent or the mortgage. Okay, now let's talk more about mortgage in New York. Okay, not only do people have to pay property taxes in New York, okay, they also have to pay insurance. You know, it's your biggest investment. You want to have insurance on it. You want to protect yourself. Should anything happen to that property, like a fire, you want to have some insurance that will help you out. Okay? So that's a big cost. Insurance as well. Insurance on the house, that's a cost. The other thing that's very costly in New York is this. The people who choose to have a car in New York, because you don't have to have a car in New York. New York has one of the best transportation systems. The trains and the buses, they run, pretty much 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there's no shortage of public transportation in New York. So that's why I say the people who choose to have a car in New York, okay, they're going to have an added expense. Not only will they have a car payment, okay, and cars are more expensive in New York. Google that thing. Check out the price for cars in New York versus cars in any other state in the U.S. Check out the prices for cars. Also, what they're going to have is car insurance. Whether it's a house, you're going to have insurance. Whether it's a car, you're going to have insurance. These items are adding up. The cost of living in New York is what drove me away from New York. I was just like, no, this is just too much money going out. $1,000 for rent. Maybe I was spending $1,000 a year back then for the car insurance. It's just a lot of money adding up, and I just wanted to manage my money differently. I did. And I'm sure when I moved down to Georgia, when I moved down from New York to Georgia, my insurance cost on my car was a fraction, a percentage of what I paid in New York. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it definitely was a fraction, okay? There was a noticeable difference, okay? So having a car in New York and having a car expense in Georgia, the South, a significant reduction in monthly expense for me. So it's another reason why people move from New York, guys. Yeah. Now here's the thing. Yeah, a lot of people like the nightlife in New York. And you know what, guys? I'll tell you this. Once upon a time, I did like the nightlife in New York. The club scene, the party scene. Once upon a time, I liked it. But you get older, you get wise, and you just put other things to bed. So I put that to bed. And I just thought about, I'm like the fact, I would like to have a better quality of life. Guys, can you relate? If you can relate, drop me some comments, please. Can you relate? So listen, guys, I have family and friends, like I've mentioned before, that still live in New York. Now, did I tell them? Yes, I told them about my plans to move away from New York. They knew, okay? And I told them what was going well, and I told them the transition I'm making. They knew. Family members and friends knew. They listened. Yeah, they listened, but they didn't make the transition. So now I've got friends and I've got family members my age and older in New York, okay? And still under the heavy expenses like I'm talking about. Rent, mortgage, taxes, car insurance. They're still under these heavy expenses. It is more challenging to make a transition from one state to another state as you get older. It's more challenging. It is. All you can do for your friends and family members is give them good information, give them good advice. That's what I've done, guys. That is exactly what I've done. That's all you can do. Be an example to them. So I was an example, and unfortunately right now I've got friends and family members that have regrets about not making a move away from New York sooner versus later. I see them on Facebook all the time. Complaining about, why am I still here? It's complicated, guys. It's complicated. But all I can tell you is this. I have no regrets making that move from New York to Georgia. I have no regrets at all. Guys, did you move? Did you make a move from New York? Drop me a comment. If you know what I'm saying is the truth, drop me a comment, guys. As always, If you like my content, if you like my vibe, press that like button, share my videos, and do subscribe. I appreciate, guys, when you subscribe. Can you subscribe for me? Press that subscribe button. As always, guys, this is Nala. I will see you guys in the next video.